Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder if letting your mind wander helps your memory or messes it up? This study dives into a fascinating question. When you are resting after learning something new, does a wandering mind help or hurt your memory? We all know rest is important for solidifying memories. But what happens when your thoughts drift away during that rest period, especially if you are listening to your favorite music? So the big idea here is that resting after learning is good for memory, but if your mind wanders a lot while you are trying to learn, it usually messes things up. This study asks, what about mind wandering during the rest period after learning? Does it have the same negative effect or is it different? And what role does music play in all of this? They use something called the caught probe paradigm, which sounds fancy. But it is basically a way to catch people in the act of mind wandering. They had people rest in silence or with music they liked, then tested their memory. Here is how they did it. Imagine you learn a bunch of dot patterns. Then you get to rest, either in a quiet room or listening to your own favorite songs. While you are resting, little prompts pop up every so often asking, were you thinking about the dot patterns just before this question appeared? If you say no, that is counted as mind wandering. After this rest, they tested everyone on two things. First, could they classify the dot patterns into their original categories? And second, could they recognize patterns they'd seen before versus new ones? They did this whole process twice for each person, once with rest in silence and once with music, switching the order to make sure it was fair. The learning part involved looking at different dot patterns and trying to figure out what made them belong to a certain category. They saw 15 patterns from 3 categories, and this sequence was repeated 3 times. Then came the rest period, either silent or with music. And finally, the memory tests after all the memory testing. They also had participants fill out a questionnaire about how much they liked and engaged with music. Now, what did they find? It is quite interesting. For the category classification task, which is like learning to sort things, people did well above chance after both silence and music rest. But here is the kicker. The amount of mind wandering during rest didn't seem to make a difference in how well people classified the patterns. It was like the rest period itself helped solidify that information, regardless of whether your mind wandered. Interestingly, for this classification task, the best way to predict performance was simply knowing if you rested in silence or with music. And there wasn't a huge difference between the two. The mind wandering part didn't add much to predicting how well you'd do. But when it came to the recognition task, that is, remembering if you'd seen a specific pattern before things got more nuanced, here, people also performed above chance after both rest conditions. However, rest with music seemed to give a slight edge, crucially. And this is where it gets really exciting. They found something interesting about mind wandering during rest in silence. When people mind wandered more during silent rest, their performance on this recognition task actually went up. So for silent rest, more mind wandering meant better recognition. This suggests that a wandering mind during quiet rest might actually be beneficial for memory consolidation, at least for remembering specific items. The paper even goes so far as to say this offers empirical support to theories suggesting spontaneous thought. Like mind wandering plays a role in memory consolidation. What about the music? The study found that people were more likely to mind wander when listening to their preferred music compared to resting in silence. This makes sense, as music can be very engaging and can trigger thoughts. And interestingly, performance in the recognition task was predicted to be higher after rest with music overall. However, the amount of mind wandering during the music rest didn't seem to directly boost recognition performance. The paper speculates that perhaps the music itself, by potentially improving mood or creating a certain mental state, already provides a boost to memory consolidation that is independent of the specific mind-wandering content. It is like music might already be doing the heavy lifting for consolidation during rest. So, what is the big takeaway? It looks like rest is indeed good for memory, and mind wandering during rest isn't always the enemy. In silence, more mind wandering might actually help you remember specific things better. With preferred music, while you are more likely to mind wander, and overall performance in recognition might be better. The amount of mind wandering seems less critical, perhaps because the music itself is already beneficial. Now, there are a couple of limitations they mentioned. They didn't control the specific music people chose, and maybe certain types of music have different effects. Also, the dot patterns might have been too easy to remember. Future studies could look into this and also compare preferred music with non-preferred music and see how this affects memory consolidation over longer periods. This research is a fantastic step towards understanding the complex relationship between our minds, rest, and memory. It suggests that those moments of quiet daydreaming might be more productive than we think. and that music can influence our mental states during rest in powerful ways. It really opens the door to thinking about how we use our downtime to actually improve our learning and recall. So, next time you are resting, don't feel too guilty if your mind starts to wander, especially if you are in a quiet space or listening to tunes you love. It might just be your brain doing some important memory work. What do you think about these findings? Does mind wandering help your memory? Let me know in the comments below, and if you found this helpful, give this video a like and subscribe to Rubin's Mind Lab for more deep dives into the fascinating world of psychology. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.